Module 4. The regional development banks of the Americas, Europe, and the Middle East, and the 2 banks created in the last decade. With Module 3, this completes the multilateral map. The Inter-American Development Bank was established in 1959 and is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It is the oldest and largest regional development bank. Membership is 48 countries, 26 borrowing members in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 22 non-borrowing members from outside the region. The United States is the largest single shareholder. The group has 3 arms. The IDB itself lends to sovereign borrowers. IDB Invest, formerly the Inter-American Investment Corporation, is the private sector arm. And IDB Lab, formerly the Multilateral Investment Fund, finances early-stage and innovation projects. The Fund for Special Operations, historically the concessional window, had its lending operations merged into ordinary capital in 2017. Concessional treatment now runs through blended terms and a grant facility for the poorest borrowers. 4 other financiers matter across the region. CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, established 1970, headquartered in Caracas. It is owned by around 20 Latin American and Caribbean countries together with Spain and Portugal and a number of private banks. CAF has no concessional window and funds itself entirely in capital markets. It is known in the region for lending with lighter conditionality and shorter approval times than the EIB, which makes it a genuine alternative for governments and a distinct client for consultants. CABEI, the Central American Bank for Economic Integration, known regionally as BCIE, established 1960, headquartered in Tegucigalpa. Founded by the Central American states, it now has extra-regional members including Spain, Mexico, Korea, Argentina, and Colombia, and it is the largest financier of several Central American economies. The Caribbean Development Bank, established 1969, headquartered in Bridgetown. Its Special Development Fund is a donor-replenished concessional window for the smaller and more vulnerable Caribbean states. And 2 basin and border institutions, FNPLATA, headquartered in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, serving the River Plate Basin countries, and the North American Development Bank in San Antonio, financing environmental infrastructure along the United States-Mexico border. Europe has 2 large institutions, and they are not alike. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, established 1991, headquartered in London. Its shareholders are more than 70 countries, plus the European Union and the European Investment Bank. It was created to support the transition of former centrally planned economies to market economies, and that transition mandate still shapes how it appraises projects. It works across roughly 40 economies, from Central and Eastern Europe through the Western Balkans, Turkey, the Caucasus, Central Asia, Mongolia, and the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. Members have approved a limited extension into Sub-Saharan Africa and Iraq. Check the current country of operations list before assuming coverage. The EBRD is unusual among the development banks in that the majority of its investment is non-sovereign, lending to and investing in private companies, banks, and municipal utilities rather than to national governments. Its procurement rules for private sector clients are correspondingly lighter than the World Bank model. The European Investment Bank, established 1958, headquartered in Luxembourg, is owned by the EU member states and is the largest multilateral lender in the world by annual volume. Most of that lending is inside the Union. EIB Global, created in 2022, is the arm through which it operates outside, a major co-financier of infrastructure in Africa, the Western Balkans, Asia, and Latin America under the Global Gateway Strategy. 4 smaller European institutions are worth knowing by name. The Council of Europe Development Bank, established 1956, headquartered in Paris, financing social investment, housing, health, education, and refugee response across its member states. The Nordic Investment Bank, established 1975, headquartered in Helsinki, owned by the 8 Nordic and Baltic countries, alongside the Nordic Development Fund, which finances climate work in low-income countries. The Black Sea Trade and Development Bank, headquartered in Thessaloniki, serving its Black Sea region member states. And the Eurasian Development Bank, established 2006, headquartered in Almaty, whose members include Russia, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. This group is consistently underestimated outside the region, and it finances heavily across the Arab world, Africa, and Asia. The funds coordinate through a mechanism called the Arab Coordination Group, together with the Islamic Development Bank and the OPEC Fund. The Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, established 1961, the first Arab Development Fund. The Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, established 1968 and operational from 1972, also headquartered in Kuwait, owned by Arab League states. The Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, 1971. The Saudi Fund for Development, 1974, in Riyadh. The Qatar Fund for Development, 2002, in Doha. And the OPEC Fund for International Development, 1976, headquartered in Vienna, which lends worldwide rather than only in member states. The Arab Monetary Fund, in Abu Dhabi, plays a regional role closer to the IMFs than to a development banks. 2 practical points. These institutions generally lend concessionally to sovereigns for infrastructure, often as co-financiers alongside the World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, or the African Development Bank, and their procurement is frequently tied or restricted to member state suppliers, with documentation less publicly exposed than the World Bank's. Relationships and in-country presence count for more here. 2 banks were created in the last decade on the same argument. The new development bank was agreed at Fortaleza in 2014 and became operational in 2015. It is headquartered in Shanghai, with a regional center in Johannesburg. It was founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa with equal shareholding, and has since admitted further members including Bangladesh, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Algeria. It lends for infrastructure and sustainable development, including in local currency. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, covered in Module 3, is the other institution of this generation. Both were created on the argument that the Bretton Woods institutions underserve infrastructure and underrepresent emerging economies in their governance. Both are young, both run lean, and both co-finance extensively with the older banks. Before you rely on any of this, check the source. Country of operations lists, membership, shareholding, and instrument names all change. Use each institution's own site, EIB, org CAF, com BSI, org CAREBank, org EBID, com EIB, org COEBank, org NIB, INT, NDB, INT, OPE Fund, org, and each Arab fund's own pages. For the EBRD, in particular, confirm the current countries of operation rather than relying on a regional description. In summary, the Americas, the IDB Group as the anchor CAF, as the fast market-funded alternative, CABEI in Central America and the Caribbean Development Bank, Europe and Eurasia, the EBRD with a private sector transition mandate, the EIB, as the largest lender by volume with EIB Global outside the Union, plus the Council of Europe Development Bank, the Nordic Investment Bank, the Black Sea Bank, and the Eurasian Development Bank. The Middle East, a coordinated group of Arab funds plus the OPEC Fund, lending concessionally and often with tied procurement. And the new banks, the New Development Bank and EIB, lean, infrastructure-focused, and heavy co-financiers. Next, the bilateral agencies and development finance institutions, region by region.